Well, the latest plot twist at tea is that Ross Taylor has fallen to the last ball in the middle session off the bowling of Ravindra Jadeja. So New Zealand are 125 for 4, still requiring another 159 to pull off an unlikely victory. And in their way stand India, who still requires 6 wickets to complete this win and take a 1-0 lead in this particular test match. On ESPN Cricket for Matchday, I'm joined by Daniel Vettori and Wasim Jaffer, former New Zealand captain and former India opener, respectively. Dan, quite the perfect time in a sense for India to have struck because this was probably the partnership which New Zealand would have depended a lot on. Their two most experienced players in this middle order.
Well, unfortunately, the sort of as advertised, we talk long and hard about how you can build a big partnership together, but things can happen quickly, and that's what India's done. And I think it's a lot of credit to India that they've managed to stay so economical and continue to attack. But in the end, just that amount of pressure can just add and add and add. And the big wicket was the Latham one, and that put India back in the box seat. And then to get that wicket in the last over, I mean, India would be feeling pretty good about themselves, and New Zealand would be slightly despondent after all the hard work through the first two sessions.
Yeah, we'll just talk about Latham in a little bit more detail in a bit. But before that, Wasim, Ashwin goes past Harbhajan Singh in terms of tally of test wickets, behind two greats of Indian cricket in Anil Kumble and Kapil Dev, and in many respects a great in his own right because he's had a superb year this year, just coming back from that vigil at Sydney and then the series against England, then dropped after the World Test Championship final. And since then, he's just not looked back since the World T20.
Yeah, he's been a phenomenal bowler since his debut. He played alongside Harbhajan Singh for a while, but after that, he's shouldered responsibility, especially in India, being a prime bowler, and that is a phenomenal record. Getting past in so fewer tests is an outstanding achievement, and all credit to him. He's won so many games for India in India, and he's getting better and better even outside India, and he's fantastic bowler in his own right.
Dan, there's often talk about how spinners mature with age and get better. How do you look at the evolution of Ashwin and the way that he's gone about his game?
I find him fascinating. I think for someone who's been so dominant in so many different scenarios for India, he's so reliable, particularly in home conditions. He never lets them down, and the pace at which he takes wickets is phenomenal. And it is for a fellow spinner to sit back and watch how he's tried to evolve, how the variations, the bowler that he was to the bowler he's become. He's always learning and always trying to get better. And all this is while all this is going on, being one of the best spinners for India or in world cricket, he regularly gets dropped. It's fascinating to sit back and see a guy who averages over 5 wickets a test and a consistent match winner gets left out of teams overseas. Jadeja gets preferred to him, but he keeps coming back. And so for him to sit into this echelon of wicket takers with throughout Test cricket, and he's far from done. I mean, he's comfortably going to end up India's second highest wicket taker, and maybe he could make a run at Kumble as well.
It's an interesting one which Dan mentions, Wasim, because a lot of opinion gets divided on this particular topic about Ashwin getting picked versus Ashwin getting dropped. Now, which side of the fence are you on? Because there are so many who believe that you cannot drop a bowler of his quality. Yet a lot of people do give the flip side of it that Jadeja has probably been better batter in recent times in overseas conditions, which is why Ashwin tends to miss out. What's your take on this?
I think Dan is absolutely spot on. Somebody who averages 5 wickets per test match and then suddenly he gets dropped. But then again, he makes a comeback and wins you matches in India. And even outside Indian conditions, he's done really, really well. So at times, I was really surprised that he hardly played in England, hardly played in Australia. You do feel disappointed for somebody who's got 400, close to 400 wickets now, more than 417. So I do feel surprised at sometimes at the selection, but he's one of those guys, Devan, who being an off spinner, to play IPL so consistently, just because he's got so much variety and he's so intelligent, and the way he uses his variations, there are not many off spinner apart from Harbhajan Singh that has played consistently and also a prime bowler in his team. and for him to come back and play T20 international and one of the most important bowlers in his franchise cricket as well. I think a lot of credit goes to him for him to reinvent himself time and again.
Well, we've talked about this pitch, the quality of it. One thing which you require, whether you're a batter or a bowler, is patience on it. Ashwin has probably shown that requisite patience. And Dan, similar is the case with Tom Latham. Two outstanding half centuries, only the third New Zealander to have done that in India after Nathan Aspel and Craig McMillan in the Ahmedabad Test in 2003. Very good effort, and if New Zealand are able to save this test match or indeed go on and press for a victory, then they are in this position primarily because of his patience and vigilance at the crease.
Yeah, he's matched the Indian spinners' patience, and we talk long about how much India's benefit from putting balls together, from being economical, and Tom Latham's and Will Young in that first innings have been able to counter that, and that's down to their diligence and their patience and their understanding of what they need to do in conditions. So I said it yesterday that Tom Latham's one of the supreme opening batsmen in world cricket, and that's because he can adapt to any conditions. He's born and raised on New Zealand wickets or Christchurch wickets, which tend to seam around more than most. And for him to go to India and be so successful, not just in this tour but in previous tours as well, shows the quality of him as a player. But more than that, just the batsmanship. And I think all cricketers can look back and say anyone who can adapt to a multitude of conditions deserves their place at the top of world cricket pecking order.
Now, Wasim, in the first session, we did chat after the first session about the relative ineffectiveness of the Indian seamers. So let's just dive a little bit more into that point because I'll also lead into how much of a role they'll play in this final session of play. Now, why is it that the Indian seamers have probably not been able to extract as much movement as their New Zealand counterparts? You did speak about their natural height, about their release, but where has that been lacking perhaps from Umesh Yadav and Ishant Sharma?
I don't think they've lacked, a lot. I think Jamieson and Saudi, you got to give credit to them for they have got more out of this pitch. They did more with the ball compared to the Indian bowlers. I think that is what you need to say. I mean, Umesh bowled really well in this session. He did get the breakthrough in the first over itself. But I think they'll have a role to play in the third session. Probably they'll get the new ball also. So again, with the hard new ball. India might prefer to go with spinners at one end, and they might try Umesh or Ishant, and they'll I think still have a role to play in this Test match if India needs to go on and win.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Dan, because the new ball, I suppose, is about 16, 17 overs away. You've got New Zealand prized open with 4 wickets, but there's still a lot of batting to come. So, how do India approach this? Do they just crowd whoever comes in with as many fielders as possible? Because it looks unlikely from this scenario that New Zealand can push on for a victory, considering the required run rate and how we've seen the pattern of run scoring on this test.
It'll be very difficult, and I think New Zealand's mindset will be about saving this Test match now, and that's a big role for Williamson and Nichols, who's just come to the crease. But for India, I think there'll be a period of building up to that new ball, and there'll be a short attack from Umesh and Ishant Sharma, and then it'll be back to the spinners because it's been the spinners that have got them in this position, and they won't want to give any time away from that pressure. And I think that new ball for the spinners could just be as effective as what they've produced so far. We've seen Axar Patel probably at his best with the new ball. So maybe one of the seamers and Axar to be open the bowling with that new ball and see where it gets them. But a lot of pressure coming New Zealand's way from a strong Indian bowling lineup.
Yeah, just staying with you, Dan, for this because there's probably not that much time in terms of how much play there'll be had. So, what kind of pressure will that put on the spinners? You've talked about how patience is a big requirement on this particular pitch. So, how do the spinners approach this? Do they experiment a little extra, or do they just try and bowl simple, good old line and length and try and let the pitch do the rest?
I think so. I actually don't believe India are under that much pressure. I think they will just do what they do. And they've been such a consistent and solid team for a long period of time that they understand the vagaries of Test match cricket, and what they'll try to do is just be as consistent as they have been. And maybe in the last hour or so, they may try a few things, but I think they'll back that skill set that's got them so far to maintain. And I don't think Rahane will try too much. I think he'll be very, calm and confident and just allow his bowlers to do what they've been doing. And you may see a few more men around the bat, but I don't think they'll succumb to trying to chase wickets or try too many different things. They'll just be true to themselves.
And Wasim, earlier in this year, Australia lost at the Gabba for the first time since 1988. India haven't lost at home to New Zealand since 1988. I guess you kind of know where I'm going with this one. Is it possible?
No, I don't think so. I think 159 or 160, whatever runs that New Zealand need is far too many in the last session. With Taylor just got out. I think if Williamson and Taylor would have stayed, then they might have, at least pushed on after some while. But with Taylor out and Ball, will do something, and obviously Williamson's wicket hold a lot of importance. Uh, but I think India will definitely push on with batters, with the fielders around the bat. And with the hard new ball coming in, it's going to be hard work for the New Zealand batter. It's going to be a tough challenge. It's not going to be easy. So I only see either New Zealand bat really, really well to survive this test and make it a draw, which will feel like a win for them. But definitely either it's going to be Indian win or a draw, if at all.
So I'm going to put each of you into the spot now with a prediction about how this is going to finish. When we chat again at the end of play, what is the result going to be, and who is going to be perhaps this difference maker in this third session? Starting with you, Dan.
Well, I think first of all it's going to be fascinating third session, and it's been a fun test match. Not often we get a test match to go into the last session on the final day, but ultimately I think it'll be the spinners who have put India in this position. And if we look to that first innings when New Zealand had some control and were playing well, it was Axar Patel who broke it all up and put pressure on them. So I think they'll build and build and build till that new ball and then hand it to Axar and hope he can do similar to what he did in the first innings.
Wasim, would you agree? Similar script to play out in the second innings as well.
I think so. I think Akshar and Jadeja holds a lot of importance because the odd ball spinning, odd ball staying straight, and that's exactly how Taylor has got out. So any right-hander that is going to be an issue. And again, for the left-handers, they'll target the rough area. And I think Umesh as well. Umesh, because he keeps the ball within that stump trim line. I think those three guys are very, very crucial. And I think for Rahane as well, he doesn't want to bowl too much fast bowler on this pitch and not ruin by not bowling spinners too much. I think Akshar was under bowled a little bit, so he need to start with those two guys at the start of the session.
So likely to be a trial by spin in this third and final session. Many thanks for your thoughts, gentlemen. We'll see you at the close of play and wrap up what has been a really interesting test match at Kanpur. And indeed, at the end of it, we'll know if New Zealand are one down or they still have everything to play for in Mumbai in just under a week's time. You've been watching ESPN Cricket for Matchday.